Державне агентство з
Та ми то не
енергозбереження та
забуваємо.
енергоефективності.
Інша справа, що коли Савчук щось говорить, то про нас не згадує.
Ну, ми будемо намагатися це робити.
Так, ми готові.
Оголошу. Добрий день. Ми оголошуємо.
Good afternoon. We announce the next event in UCMC, Energy Efficiency Experience of Visegrad Group for Ukraine. Also would like to hear your recommendations for your recommendations about energy efficiency for the next year. We have Mr. Mykhailo Gonchar, President of the Center for Global Studies Strategy 21st. Mr. Kostyantyn Gura, Deputy Head of the Department on Project Management and International Cooperation, and Andriy Chubyk. Thank you, Romana. This important project was founded jointly with the Century 21st think tank with our Slovak partners, with the support of Slovak Aid Agency and Visegrad Foundation. From the name of our project, you clearly understand that it is designed for gaining experience in energy efficiency from Visegrad Group countries. The project was launched in 2015. At that time, we very gladly welcomed to Ukraine our Visegrad experts. These were our colleagues from Slovak International Center, from Polish Institute for International Studies, from Hungarian think tank, and from Czech think tank in Brno. And the project started in the following way. Ukrainian experts from State Agency on Energy Efficiency, Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Finance, the regulator listened to the lectures about energy efficiency reforms in Visegrad countries, in different countries of Visegrad Group. Then they had site visits. In April 2016, the first group of mayors from small cities of Ukraine attended Slovak Republic and studied how small towns in Slovakia tackled energy efficiency. Then later a group of mayors from bigger cities attended Czech cities, looking at more industrialized centers and gaining the experience of energy efficiency from those cities. Actually, now we are not at the final stage of our project. We try to rethink the experience which we got and apply it to Ukrainian realities, but nevertheless, my colleagues will describe more about specificities of what they have learned, and also my colleague Mr. Gura will describe the manual, the guidebook describing how Visegrad Group countries tackle the energy efficiency problem, how they did this in the past and how they continue to do this. With this, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Kostyantyn Gura. I would like to start with a statement that the energy efficiency and renewables had become not just economic, social, and political issues, but there's also the issues of national security. And in our case, transfer of the best practices and experience from the Visegrad Group countries is important because those countries are similar to Ukraine in energy consumption structure. I would like to start with the major achievements of the state energy efficiency agency during the last year. One of the top priorities for Ukrainian economy in the last year was to cut down natural gas consumption, and during the last three heating seasons, we cut natural gas consumption 30%. This is official statistics. The statistics does not include neither industrial production, which is very energy consuming, this and our occupied territories. This was partially achieved due to the operation of new facilities which work without natural gas, and they amount to 1 gigawatt of energy production in total. Speaking about energy efficiency, I should remind you that we have the National Action Plan in energy efficiency by 2020, and our target is to reach 11% of renewable energy sources in the total energy balance of the nation by 2020. The state has to contribute a lot of effort to thinking how this should be done. Partially, and also we have calculated new green tariffs, which are calculated now in euros and which offer more stable conditions for potential investors. This map shows that all around Ukraine you may implement all sorts of renewable energy projects. Actually, each region of Ukraine offers a lot of different potential for renewable energy sources, including wind, solar energy, geothermal, etc. In order to reach that ambitious target of 11% by 2020, we have to invest almost 16 billion euro within next 3 years. Of course, for Ukrainian budget, this is an affordable amount of money. That's why we have to use the experience of our neighbors. Actually, this should not be just subsidies from the budget. This should be measures aimed at improving investors' access to Ukrainian market. And we try to build upon this foundation. So it seems that we have a good green tariff. Also, Ukraine has good potential for development of renewables. But nevertheless, during the last year, we did not observe a huge influx of renewable energy projects to Ukraine. And we asked ourselves what was the reason, and found out that sometimes international investors do not know how to start the process in Ukraine, to whom to approach in this country. In order to simplify this situation, we have created the state enterprise, which is called Center for Involvement of Green State Company Green Investment Development Center, under umbrella of the State Agency on Energy Efficiency and Energy Saving of Ukraine. Also, we collected from municipalities the best project applications for investments. They have developed business plans. They allocated land for those projects, etc. This was just first part of my story. Another part of my story will be energy efficiency in general. I mentioned already the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, which requires 9% cutoff in energy consumption by 2020. But when we look at the energy consumption structure, we clearly see that households consume almost 50% of all the energy, and it's natural to focus our attention in tackling this problem on the household sector. In Ukraine, we have a very obsolete residential housing fleet, residential housing stock. And the majority of those very old buildings require energy efficiency investment and measures. I participated in the Visegrad workshops where they explained how the state forces physical persons or owners of the buildings to invest in energy efficiency. And one of the tools which is now implemented in Ukraine is the warm credit program. I heard much said about the inefficiency of this program, but almost 200,000 of Ukrainian families, of Ukrainian households, made use of that program. Actually, it's a bright demonstration that people vote for energy efficiency. I also would like to say that by the end of 2016, when this program just started, there were less than 100 people who applied for the credits, while this summer almost 200 people applied for these warm credits every day. This demonstrates how Ukrainians change their attitude to the energy efficiency in our country in general. I would like to thank the Global Studies Center for involvement of our agency and for implementation of the projects like this. And maybe Andriy describe more about that manual about Visegrad Group countries' energy efficiency work. We try to make a synergy between effort of government agencies and NGOs. And now I'm pleased to give the floor to Mr. Andriy Chubyk, who will describe the English language manual or publication describing Visegrad experience in energy efficiency, which soon will appear in Ukrainian. Thank you very much. In my presentation, I would like to describe in brief the topics which we managed to cover in our informational booklet. When we just started thinking about the content of the booklet, we found out that there was a huge number of problem issues to be covered. Which we tried to compare the achievements of the Visegrad Group countries in different spheres. But of course, there are limitations in human resources, in physical resources, and in financial resources. That's why probably it's not very profound research, but nevertheless we did our best to cover the most interesting areas. As for the table of contents, first, we described Ukraine as a target state trying to steer up its energy efficiency effort with involvement of Visegrad countries' experience. Visegrad countries are ready to provide to us assistance both politically and with expert opinion. So we provided the background information about situation in Ukraine and about those bottlenecks which could be overcome. After having done this, we described legislation in the Visegrad Group countries about energy efficiency, how the changes to that legislation were gradually introduced, what were the main obstacles to those changes. We also reviewed financial instruments available, which was made available by the EU and which were allocated individually by countries. Then we reviewed individual regional level projects, and finally, at the end of our manual, we offer links to useful resources like those institutions working in Visegrad Group. Thus, we tried to offer a variety, broad spectrum of information. So the major tags were as legislation, state policy, financial, non-financial mechanisms, best practices, and what should be avoided.
Чому ми взяли
Why we have taken Visegrad Group? As my colleagues mentioned, we have a joint past or similar past, we inherited similar legacy in terms of the residential building stock, insufficient heating, insulation, typical engineering solutions, which actually were multiplied in all the former social camp countries. But nevertheless, Visegrad Group countries managed to reach noticeable results. And they modernized the infrastructures, redone heating. They widely use local heating resources and warming of panel houses.
So the biggest problem is slow legislative process. Energy efficiency is declared as one of the priorities, but key laws in this area, they are just draft laws, and the majority of them are at the level of the Cabinet of Ministers, and the majority of these laws are in the Parliament. But in during this year, there is no big process in this process, and it influences badly on plans on renewable energy and the plans on energy efficiency. And the actions are delayed because of absence of legislation in this area. Experience of Czech Republic. Each of these 4 states, they started to work with their legislation, their base legislation. They started to build national programs and plans of actions, and they used basic requirements of the European Union in order to improve their national legislation, and step by step they approached to the increase of energy efficiency. Czech Republic, they adopted the law on energy saving, and step by step they introduced the amendments to this law, adapting it to the standards and directives of the European Union that each year appeared. And this was their way to increase energy efficiency. Also, energy efficiency there is one of 5 key priorities of national energy concept, and it is reflected in National Plan on Energy Efficiency. And the Czech Republic implements all these programs, centralized approach, using institutions and programs that showed their efficiency in the past and can continue to work at present and in the future. And novelties that were introduced, we want to note them. There is priority of energy efficiency because at some stages of development, the Czech Republic understood that renewable energy, solar energy, it poses some threats because if you use affordable credits, business started to build new facilities, and that threatened harmony in the work of energy system. That's why they have tax on solar energy. This is a specific tax, but it exists, and it is interesting for us. So it is not stimulated as they show it that in the European Union. And briefly speaking, we may say that for these 4 countries, they use European funds. This is one of the key sources of their success, and possibility to continue finance these projects and do not pose this burden on state budget. Hungary also focused on legislation and identified priority. So this is household sector, and they see the biggest capabilities and opportunities there for energy saving, and also they focus their attention on the accessible sources of energy such as biomass and thermal energy. Among interesting instruments that they use is Kyoto money. Until 2020, this money is available for physical persons and business. Poland is the example of national policy when government tried to undertake minimum obligation, and they introduced a lot of programs of support at national and regional levels in order to improve energy efficiency, and small-sized household programs especially for the eastern region. So there is different help in different areas provided by the state in Poland, and Ministry of Energy, together with national regulator, they deal with the issues of energy sphere. They regulate development, and they attract investment and distribution. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, they pay more attention to renewable energy and to information campaign. On the whole, we should note interesting example is provided by Slovak Republic. They believe that energy efficiency is a key priority, and renewable energy is the sphere for business, and the state can create some preferences but minimize financial instruments with which it will develop renewable energy. Mostly the focus is on the household sector. Through a system of state programs, they support both private households and those unions that we call condominia. And this is briefly about this manual, and we will be glad to announce through the media when our Ukrainian edition be available, and we will share it among all those stakeholders who are interested in this. And lastly, it will be available on our site, so it is free access. And thank you for attention. Do you have questions? Please ask. We have time for this.
I'm Sidorov Dmitro from Union Agency. National Energy Efficiency Plan requires 9% cut, 9% of renewables. Against what? Against 2014, 2016. Maybe this should be asked to the energy efficiency experts. Whether you have any assessment, how many costs, what will be the cost, and what will be the profit from implement. So how much we will spend, what will be the cost, and what will be the profit, what will be the benefit. As for the money evaluation, the majority of our residential stock is not energy efficient, and that's why our assumptions suggest that up to between 48 and 90 billion euros should be invested into modernization of the residential stock. Of course, in order to reach energy efficiency, this amount of money will be needed, up to 100 billion euros. And about experience of Visegrad countries. If you compare the Visegrad 4 member countries, the investments in generation and in energy efficiency. In Ukraine, we clearly see that our investment in production are big, while investment in energy efficiency are much smaller. So what was the general trend in those countries? What do they prefer, to raise generation or to strengthen energy efficiency? I think we should not look for panacea in the problem solution. We should act comprehensively. While in Visegrad countries, they do not involve generation because they do not have big production industries. They import energy resources, and due to this, they try to save it. Poland has something in the deposits, and they try to make good use of it. And due to this, they have the energy saving as one of their top priorities. Looking at the experience of Visegrad countries, we look for balance, of course. But at this very stage, taking into account what we discussed today, as of now, we should keep energy efficiency first. Actually, it's like the wing in an airplane. Energy efficiency should contribute to good development of generation. When we try to get rid of natural gas and try to increase domestic production, well, we at the same time should cut down domestic consumption. Of course, we should not take any extreme positions, as Kostyantyn mentioned about energy inefficient residential housing. 75% of our the EU residential fund are identified as non-energy efficient, despite all the huge investment in that. Our situation is even more grave, but it does not mean we should not try to improve it. I would like to draw your attention to such a detail that all those countries prefer to spend public money to support energy efficiency. Of course, those projects are long-term projects for any country, and in order to create incentives for small and medium-sized projects implementation, the government offers public money. Thus, the state spends its money as investments in energy efficiency. At the same time, when we look at generation, which is traditional, for example, for Ukraine, middle-size and large-scale generation, in those Visegrad countries, these projects are not top priorities. They understand that they have sufficient scale of generation, and they offer just better prices, while the state allows households to strengthen energy efficiency of their buildings, and which is a good, smart contribution to the family budgets, to sustainable development of the country, and to sustainable attitude to the nature. So through the energy saving investments, the government tries to support energy saving resources. Is it possible to achieve energy efficiency without residential utility subsidies and without removal of monopolies from the heating market? I think that the consumers are interested in energy efficiency. About subsidies, I would express my personal opinion. I think this system of household subsidies are it is imperfect, because the subsidy recipients are not motivated to do these energy saving measures, because that energy which is wasted, it is covered by the state. As for our program, we offered 70% from border credit to the subsidy recipients, and thus we stimulated subsidy holders for energy saving measures. But as for me, I am a supporter of the monetization of subsidies. The subsidies should not be in a form of clearing operations between different government agencies. There should be live money for actual subsidy recipients, and thus those people will decide whether to invest them into thermomodernization or to buy a glass of milk. So my personal attitude is that we should monetize subsidies. This is required by the social memorandum of the energy community, but with that number of energy subsidies which are granted today, it is not possible to monetize that subsidies. It is practically very difficult. And one very small remark, just to show the scope of the issue. We have allocated billions of hryvnia for subsidies for the next year, while the energy efficiency measures were given just less than 1 billion. As this shows how we set priorities. I don't think we should throw out money into subsidies. Quite often we open windows to diminish, to chill out the room. This again shows how energy inefficient our buildings are. And at the very end, I would like to provide a bright example. In course of one of our workshops, one Slovak expert asked how did we assess the how we assessed the level of consumption without metering. The Slovak expert was unable to understand this. It was very difficult to explain why we did not have meters in our country. So we come to the sacral question. Metering and measuring are the keys to energy efficiency problem. Thank you for your attention. I hope you will find more information on our website. I would like to thank to our colleagues from Visegrad Group countries, to our partners for the synergy of effort which we received. Thank you for your attention, and thank you to our translators for translation. Thank you.